It's just a change of government.
The Honourable Louise Upston.
I've got great news for the Speaker who's just resumed her seat, because there are loads of solutions that this government has in place in terms of an area that's very important for Kiwis, and that's safer communities. So New Zealand is, of course, the fourth safest country in the world. But no, our government's not satisfied with that. We are aiming to be #1. And I want to talk about some of the solutions, Mr Speaker, that our government has put in place and the results that we are getting. So we believe very clearly, Mr Speaker, that when offenders are in our custody, we should absolutely do our utmost to put them on a different path in life. We owe it to their families, we owe it to their communities, we owe it to taxpayers, and we owe it to their victims. So yesterday, Mr Speaker, the Minister of Police and I announced a number of measures that is focused very much at one of the most significant drivers of crime. So 50% of all crime is committed by people under the influence of alcohol or drugs. So this is a very targeted solution. It's very specific around looking at those who are out on bail or offenders who have abstinence conditions, and making sure that by close monitoring and by more significant testing, we are able to identify early exactly what is going on. So about 50 of the highest risk offenders will be fitted with these alcohol detection anklets that will detect alcohol in their sweat. So it provides a couple of things. Obviously, there's a compliance issue. We want to know that offenders who have conditions and who are managed in the community are complying with the conditions that have been imposed by the parole board. But more importantly, we actually want offenders to be successful in creating that new path in life. And that is the point that the opposition clearly have not got their heads around. Because in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of reintegration, this government has spent $176 million in the last year alone on rehabilitation and reintegration. That is 13% of the corrections budget. But, Mr Speaker, what is important? This side of the House doesn't talk about how much money we are spending, because we very clearly focus on the results. I'm going to talk to you about the results. And that is where, so the Minister of Finance clearly talks about outputs. Outputs are results. We measure them through the better public service targets. We change the targets when we reach them. We set new targets so that taxpayers of New Zealand can absolutely see the outputs that we are achieving. And yes, in terms of inputs, funding is part of that. But what is more important for New Zealanders, for hard-working New Zealanders, is what this government is doing in terms of solving the very issues that have an impact on their life. And we are tackling the hard ones. So in the previous government, they were quite happy to leave prisoners inside with very little programs in terms of supporting their drug and alcohol. One example alone, in our term in office, we have delivered drug and alcohol programs and treatment to 22,000 offenders in the community and 6,500 prisoners. That's up from 230. 230. So when we talk about solutions, we are talking about solutions for real problems, for real Kiwis, some of the most challenged ones, absolutely, which we are making a difference for. So this side of the House, we come up with solutions, whether it's getting prisoners qualifications. The big one at the moment is getting offenders into jobs, because we know jobs provide them stability, jobs provide them an income. And, Mr Speaker, at the employer breakfasts that I've been hosting around the country, we have employers lining up to take on more offenders, because they know they are drug and alcohol free, that they have got access to literacy and numeracy, that they've got qualifications while they're inside. They are hungry for the opportunity to prove that they are set on a new path in life. And last year alone, over the last 4 years, under the Better Public Service targets, 38,000 fewer victims. 38,000 fewer victims. Now, if that's not a result that Kiwis are interested in, I don't know what is. 38,000, that's a figure I'm proud of.
Speaker.
Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, this